Sorry, the video just cut there. Slang as well. Always make sure that your students are comfortable using, well, if it's not swearing, it's okay. If it's non-profane slang, it's okay, depending on their region or depending where they're going to. For example, an Englishman can say, "I was sat on the bus." Terrible English to the rest of the world, perfectly acceptable in colloquial English. Now, again, talking about fluency. Do not interrupt your students' grammatical or vocabulary issues according to the level of fluency. Do interrupt them according to the level of fluency. If you have a beginner student, again, let's say take Russian, and they forget to use articles but can still construct a good sentence, this is a miracle. Do not interrupt them. Do not remind them again and again, use articles here until they are of the ability where it's necessary. Never interrupt a student in poor grammar, poor word choice, if they're a beginner and they can still get a thought across in English. Congratulate them on getting the thought across. As their skill level grows, so needs to be your attention to detail. Again, many foreign students have a certain affinity for the word interesting. It is a very interesting idea for you. I have this class today. It is very interesting. I like Manchester United. It's a very interesting football team. They don't think interesting. There are any one of 1,000 synonyms within English that you can use for this. They're attached to the word. It's a useful word for them to adopt in speaking English. Do not correct them on that until it becomes absolutely necessary. Moving on. The communicative foci of teaching. Again, I mentioned before, your job is to allow them to speak fluently in English. And that doesn't mean that their English is perfect. That means that they can construct and convey a thought perfectly within English. That is your job as a teacher. Let's look at the things to watch there and the things to practice so you can identify your further structure. Again, I'm not here to spoon feed you. This must be tailored to each and every one of your students to make sure that they know how to do these points. Point number 1, make sure that they have the ability to transfer information. Make sure that they can ask questions, answer questions, and essentially tell you things. That transference of information is the basis of all language and should be the basis of what they need to understand in the English language. Make sure that they know what they want to say and that they're able to say what they want to say rather than what they are being told. If you sit there and tell them to say a sentence, is not the same as them formulating a sentence of their own volition. Watch that. Authentic conversational English. Again, it's what we just talked about. Authentic conversational English does not need to be authentic Oxford level essay English. If they get the thought across, they understand what they're saying, and they can adopt the inference, the synonyms within the English language, they are speaking perfect English, right? You go to block houses in London, you go to the suburbs of Chicago, inner city Chicago, you go to rural Australia, they don't speak English. They speak perfectly fine English, though. They can transfer the information. My current Russian tutor, who I think I've talked about before in the series, speaks perfect English from a textbook. She speaks more dryly than dried paint. Poor English. Teach your students synonyms and inference, the value that comes from a word, the definition of a word, right? For example, there is a difference between cold and chilly. It's the value placed upon that word. Cold is cold, it's a fact. I am cold, yes, you are cold. I say it's a little bit chilly, or this apple is chilly, it's been in the fridge. It's slightly cold. It's symptomatic. Again, if they have a functional grasp of inference and conversational ability, you've done your work as a teacher. Watch that. Final point, if they can respond to the above, your student is finished. Your student has completed their ability to speak English fluently. And now all you have to do is iron out the chinks in the armor, realistically, the creases. If they can respond to transference of information, if they can respond to a formative sentence from someone who is not paying so much attention to sentence structure but can convey an idea, if they can respond to inference within a sentence, if they can respond to conversational English, have a conversation in English, really, your student is perfect, and you've done a great job as a teacher. Again, this has been the basics of production. It's been a bit of a dour episode, but realistically, this is all about bringing out the absolute best in your ability as a teacher so your students can find the greatest amount of success. Every word I have said today cannot be taken lightly. This is some of the most important stuff you will learn in your English teaching career. Thank you kindly. Have a lovely day. I've been Stephen Ligoff, teaching CELTO through Intersol Russia. Take care.